Sony's conference started off very strongly with Destiny, which is a game that Sony have kind of took under their belt, despite the fact it's not an exclusive, which is possibly a good thing for Sony to do, because previously they've gone for very much their first-party titles and put those at the forefront, or they've worked with Rockstar. And it's nice to see them actually working with someone else, this time in Activision. Very big budget game. The beta's coming out on the 17th of July, but overall the trailer was a bit too long and didn't really show as much as they could have done. There was very little gameplay shown, maybe 2 minutes at max, and stuff that we'd already seen.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the stuff we saw like last year, the actual demo where they showed actual live gameplay in co-op, that made the game look a lot better than the trailer. I mean, the actual graphics in the trailer looked a lot worse than the actual gameplay one. So I'm just surprised why they're showing a trailer. They showed gameplay first, trailer later. You just want more advancements instead.
The main thing to note was that Sony announced that there was going to be a Destiny PlayStation 4, which is a white PlayStation 4 and a white PS4 controller, along with I can't remember whether it was 3-month subscription or whether it was a year. They didn't specify that. But it comes with PlayStation Plus membership as well.
Sony are pushing this game quite a lot.
Sony then moved on to the Order 1886, which I had very high hopes for and thought it was going to be a very good game. But I was disappointed by the fact that the trailer that they showed was very short, showed pretty much only walking around a very dark area, and had gone for a much more of a zombie approach compared to the winding kind of streets and taking on normal human enemies as we've seen in the previous trailers. And I personally don't like the new approach of going for this. I thought it was much better to stick with the approach that they'd shown at previous E3s when they announced the game. Then, which was a very big surprise, they announced that a 1998 game called Grim Fandango, which is a very big cult classic for some people, is going to be remade fully by Tim Schafer, the original creator. There is no trailer or gameplay shown, but very pleasing announcement from Sony's point of view. They then went on to talk about a game called Entwined, which is a dual stick game, which is very much plays out like Brothers. The gameplay was not very well explained. We don't really know what it is or what you're actually supposed to do, other than the fact that you go kind of through different worlds and so on and so forth.
Everyone seemed to be excited for it, but I just didn't really understand what was the game, what was the gameplay, what you do.
Then Sony moved on to another big surprise, which was Little Big Planet 3.
After saying it's not going to be there.
After specifying, yes, that Media Molecule weren't actually going to be there, which was a very good surprise. The game seems to have changed quite dramatically in the sense that normally you just have Sackboy, whereas now they've included a couple of new characters. One of them seems to be kind of a blob that can change to be either really light or very heavy, so you could use him for switches and so on. There was also a flying character, which we assume is a bird. And there was another character as well, which I can't remember. It wasn't as useful as the other two. Again, they said that there was going to be access to all of the previous content from Little Big Planet 1 and 2, and the level design seemed to be very much similar to the previous games, which would be a very good thing to hear for most people.
And what they showed, there was nothing like that was mind-blowing or exciting. I didn't see anything different other than, okay, it's just like 4-player co-op, but it very much seemed like the same Little Big Planet. They didn't seem to do anything that could attract people that didn't have any interest in the previous Little Big Planet game.
It was very much a nod to the people that have already played Little Big Planet games.
It was just like saying, yes, we know this is part of PlayStation, we're going to continue doing it.
Sony then moved on to Far Cry 4 and didn't really show that much at first. Just showing a normal trailer. That's probably because Ubisoft had gone first. However, then Sony showed gameplay, which was very pleasing to see, because even on the Ubisoft conference, they hadn't shown any gameplay.
They just literally showed the first 5 minutes of the game, which was very similar to Far Cry 2. But this one, they showed actual gameplay. which is surprising.
It's very much one of the kind of still the tropical world that you'd expect from a Far Cry game. Very much pure gameplay.
Yeah.
They changed you kind of a bit more adventure-y, so you'd have a lot more environment that you'd explore. You'd be climbing a bit more.
Yeah,
they showed the driving mechanics.
I mean, for me, Far Cry's always been about kind of the environment. It's always been about like immersive game world, and they showed that they've still kept that, and they've made the game world feel very much real and alive.
Graphically and in terms of the detail
and the game engine, it all seems very similar to Far Cry 3. Really,
there was a lot of new changes in terms of the different kinds of wildlife and the fact that the wildlife can actually be used now. So they were using one of the elephants to actually attack the enemies, which I thought
it's kind of like Blood Dragon, but
which was quite an interesting thing. Then halfway through the Far Cry 4 trailer, they showed that you could have a secondary player come and join your game and help you out, even if they didn't have the game, which I still am absolutely
that just
shocked by.
Away. We were like, are you serious? Is there something that we missed? Like, what, someone on my friends list can just literally join the game without having the game, just because I've got the game? I mean, they didn't really make it a big enough deal out of it, because we were all just kind of shocked by it.
They really didn't say how they were going to do it, whether you'd actually need to like have PlayStation Plus to be able to do it, whether you need to have I don't know, whether you had to have a previous Far Cry game, or whether you'd have to download like part of the game, for example. So even if you didn't own the game, you could download a bit of it. Then they didn't say whether it was going to be as massive as it could be, or whether there was going to be a multiplayer.
But they didn't really show much stuff on that. But I think they showed what people really wanted to see, really. So it was good.
Then they moved on to Dead Island 2, which at first was kind of like, well, is this Sony's new RPG that they've talked about? It's zombie based, or is this going to be something else? And then when they showed it was going to be made by Techland, it was blatantly obviously going to be Dead Island 2. But once we'd actually established that it was by Techland and it was going to be Dead Island 2, we really didn't actually see anything else.
No, we just saw this another pointless trailer that it was kind of disgusting, really. I didn't like it. They again didn't show any gameplay. But like with the last Dead Island, it could be a very misleading trailer. The art style seemed kind of more Sunset Overdrive-y, really. But
the only thing that we actually got that was that made it relevant to the actual Sony conference was the fact that there's going to be an exclusive beta on the PlayStation 4, which is very nice, but bearing in mind we haven't actually seen anything whatsoever other than the fact that the game exists.
Yeah, it's not.
How can I be excited about that at the moment?
Exactly.
They then moved on to the fact that there's going to be The Last of Us zombies moving to Diablo 3, which, again, with more content you can put into an RPG, the better, especially if you can make it relevant to PlayStation titles.
They didn't really mention The Last of Us that much, though. That's the thing, because you'd think they'd take that opportunity to promote and say, this was like the system seller, this was like one of the highest rated games, this was the game that sold this many, this is the game that everyone's excited for, now you can play it on PS4 with this, that, the other. They just literally said, The Last of Us, PS4. Moving on. It
was quite strange, really. I thought that they would actually show maybe a bit of the gameplay and show how the graphics had been improved, or the frame rate had been improved, and how they've managed to fit everything on the disc and so on and so forth, but they didn't do any of that. They just simply said, we know that you know it exists.
They showed a BF4 the Battlefield Hardline trailer as well, and they said that they said what EA said, which is it's going to have a console exclusive beta on the PS4, but that's all they really said about it, really.
Yeah, once they'd actually mentioned Battlefield Hardline itself, and they'd said that the actual beta was available to actually download as of the actual conference, we didn't actually hear anything else about that. They then moved on to a lot of indie titles.
Yeah.
which, to be honest, the main thing to say was none of them looked particularly promising, because they were kind of more of the same that we've already seen before, which is fine. But personally, I'm not an indie title player.
Yeah, I mean,
so
they showed like Magicka 2, but they showed absolutely nothing. They showed a very tiny bit. They didn't explain what it was for people that hadn't played it, etc. They just really moved quite quickly through them.
Yeah, I mean, a game like No Man's Sky showed a lot of promise, but there was no gameplay explained. It didn't look particularly appealing from what they actually showed. But in terms of the actual environments and so on, how they actually stood out, it looked very good.
Yeah, but with most of these indie titles, they seem to go from really quickly without explaining what they were, like Abzu and stuff. They didn't really say what they were. They didn't excite you. They just said, here's a bunch of indie titles that we've got coming.
Sony then took the opportunity to slap Microsoft in the face again by saying that you've been able to buy a PlayStation camera and we've been overwhelmed by the number of people that have bought it, but it was optional. And it is quite a nice little thing for Andrew House to say, especially as Jack Tretton had his fun last year. Yeah. Andrew House got to have his moment this year.
And this time they said they took this opportunity to show loads of stats about PSN, which is something that Microsoft usually do, to say, oh look, we got the numbers too. And they acknowledged free-to-play games. They said there's 25 upcoming free-to-play games without subscription required. They showed a few stuff here and there, but it's good that they're acknowledging that free-to-play is going to be big and that they really care about it.
Sony then went on to talk about PlayStation Now. They said that there was going to be an open beta available in the US from the 31st of July, but didn't really specify anything other than that. They didn't specify other dates for other regions. Yeah. They didn't say whether it was when PlayStation Vita or PS3 were going to be able to have it, but they did say that it was going to be for all Sony ready things such as TVs, and that it would launch with over 100 games.
Yeah, so you can play Ultra Street Fighter 4 on a Sony TV, which is kind of exciting. Then you could play it with just a DualShock controller. They'd sell it separately. But they didn't really go much into that.
Sony then took the opportunity to say that they were going to launch PlayStation TV in a European and American market, which has previously only been available to Japanese gamers.
Yeah, for $99.
Which is very, very good. Yeah. And then you can buy it with PlayStation Plus and a controller for $139, which is amazing value. Yeah, if you want to go and play PlayStation Vita titles and eventually with PlayStation Now to stream other games, that is an incredible value piece of kit.
Then they showed Mortal Kombat 10, which is something that they don't really... Because we've not really seen much fighting games on the PS4 apart from Injustice, so it's good that they showed that, and they showed a bit of gameplay. Nothing particularly exciting, but it's good that they showed another fighting game.
Sony then talked about Phantom Pain and showed the usual trailer, which unfortunately had leaked.
Yeah,
Unfortunately for Sony, I think it was a bad move because the trailer didn't really show anything that we didn't already know.
It was really long, no gameplay shown. It didn't increase anyone's interest in it.
And personally, after not playing any other Metal Gear Solid games, I had no idea what was going on.
I didn't even know what game is it. Is it a shooter? Is it what? So
Sony's end to the conference was fantastic. They ended with announcing that GTA 5 was going to come for the PlayStation 4 and come with exclusive content.
And that your saves are going to carry over from either the 360 or the PS3. So if you've been playing the game, you can, and you didn't finish it, you can come and finish it on the PS4 with the updated stuff. So that was a real shocking announcement, really. They didn't say anything about exclusivity, but it was a good thing to announce there.
Sony then talked about Arkham Knight and said that they showed about 5 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah, they actually showed gameplay, which is not something we've seen, and it was good that it was shown.
They showed the flying mechanics and the Batmobile, where you can drive around the scope of the city.
New, really. They showed, and the weather effects were really good. They showed the Batmobile. It seemed much more open worldy. It seemed much more GTA. The city felt alive. There was actual traffic there. There was people. So that was good to see because we hadn't actually seen Arkham Knight proper gameplay before. So that was something to excite people.
Sony then ended with what everyone in the conference really wanted to see, which was an announcement of the next Uncharted game, and especially the fact that it was coming out in 2015 rather than 2016, which everyone was expecting.
And it was kind of impressive in-engine kind of teaser trailer, which was really good. But overall, the Sony conference, it was a bit jumpy, really. They didn't focus too much on each individual thing. It was a bit fast. Some of the time they had a few mic problems, but overall it was quite good. They showed that they're listening to the community,